fight. They'll try and bend the truth tonight. They'll live for what is true and right. They'll bring darkness to the light. Got victory in their sights, living for honor day and night. And no evil can compete. We are the ones, we are the lead, yeah. Might as well accept defeat. We're bringing the light in the ice and heat. They don't wanna freeze or a breeze, oh no, no. They're bringing evil to his knees, so you know there will be no need to fear. They'll defeat you till you're in the clear. Whenever you feel like evil's here, call on the knights, the Cavaliers. Go, Power Rangers, Cavaliers. Go, Power Rangers, Cavaliers. Go, Power Rangers, Cavaliers. Go, Power Rangers, Cavaliers. Call on the knights, the 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 Cavaliers. Go, go. Go, go.
On the other side of the world, located in the Eurasia area, is a country named Tozin that is cut off from the rest of the continent and separated by a force field-like barrier. As of late, the peace in this country has been becoming more and more tested by a rebel group known as the Insurgents. The kingdom has been backed into a corner and must pull out all these stops to push the rebel forces away from getting closer to the capital.
Inside one of the biggest and most luxurious castles in the world, located in the capital city Treswell, and the aging monarch King Lionel sits on his throne and proclaims,
"The insurgents are gaining the upper hand on us. We must enlist 5 warriors in the order of the grid."
The courtier then responds,
Are you sure? The procedure could kill them if it goes wrong.
The king then pounds his fist and rebuttals,
"That's a risk I'm willing to take. It's either this or the fall of my regime. I will not stand for this."
Afterward, the courtier leaves and Queen Alexandra says, "Honey, don't you think you were a little hard on Leopold? He's been trying his best to hold everything together in these trying times." And King Lionel retorts,
"Alexandria, we don't have time for compassion. We could lose everything."
Furthermore, on the other side of the capital, a group of knights is being led by a slender older man sporting short gray hair of Asian descent. He says,
"Men, we may be at our lowest right now, but we will not fail our kingdom. We will keep fighting until we take our last breaths."
One of the knights then mutters at this point,
This point we should wave the white flag. They've seized most of the land surrounding this kingdom, and their armies just keep getting bigger, while our numbers are becoming smaller by the day.
And another knight rebuttals,
I don't know about you, but I take an oath to protect this land, and I will do so. I will follow Commander Khan into battle, no matter what the result is.
Commander Khan then walks over and asks,
"Patrick, what are you two going on about? Ever since I started training this morning, you both have been running your mouths nonstop. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us that will help us win the next battle?"
Patrick then rubs his fingers through his brunette hair and replies,
Well, Commander, I was just trying to tell Anthony that he needs to keep his head up and not doubt our kingdom, sir.
The commander then looks at Antony with a stern face and says,
"You're free to leave and join our enemies. But know this. If you choose to do so, I will make quick work of you if I see you in battle. A worse thing than death is being a coward. Are you going to be a brave knight that stands against the odds, or go crying to the insurgents?"
Antony then looks around at everyone's straight faces and answers,
I will stand with my brethren till the end, sir.
Commander Khan afterward nods his head, hears a group of people approaching him, and commands,
"Everyone, ready your arms,"
only for it to be Leopold beside the royal guards. Leopold says,
It's only us. Stand down.
After that, the knights remove their hands from their weapons and he proclaims,
Commander Khan, you Sir Anthony and Sir Patrick have been chosen to be a part of the Order of the Grid.
Antony's anxiety starts to race, and Patrick, puzzled, replies,
Order of the Grid? What is that?
and Commander Khan interjects.
We don't have time to question this. We've been summoned, so I suggest we go.
And Patrick reluctantly agrees. Commander Khan then looks over at the group and says,
Men, stay in your positions and hold down the fort. I, Antony, and Patrick have been called on by the kingdom.
The knights then nod their heads in agreement as Patrick and Commander Khan depart with Leopold. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, a figure in dark knight-like armor says,
Griselda, we will bring an end to King Lionel's tyranny and rule Tosin.
And from a television screen within the room, a woman with a slightly muscular build, pitch black hair, dreary hazel eyes dressed in silver and dark yellow knight-like armor replies,
Sir, we will reform this country.
The figure nods his head as he visualizes the king stabbing a man through his chest in his memories. Meanwhile, two skinny male twins bearing short brown and blonde hair donning silver and black armor are working on assignments. One of them exclaims,
Noel, those advancements you made to the Wiccans have been wonderful.
And Noel pats his shoulder and replies,
Neville, all you have to do is follow my instructions correctly, and my visions will become a reality in no time.
Neville then smirks at Noel, and the two continue working on their project. Back on the battlefield, Griselda says in her head,
I'll make sure the king's head is on a swivel. He and his wife sit comfortably in their castle while his people starve. It makes me sick.
At the same time at a fort, an older woman of Afro descent inserts her blade in her holster and heads downstairs towards the royal guards. One of the royal guards says, Lady Eleanor, shall we? And she answers,
We shall.
And the group heads towards the kingdom. Hours later in the day, Commander Khan and Patrick are approaching the lab in the king's castle beside Leopold. Leopold says,
Our scientists have been experimenting with the morphin grid and have managed to tap into what the outside world considers Power Rangers.
Commander Khan then interjects,
Wait, so those rumors outside the kingdom are true about Power Rangers? I always thought they were a folktale.
Leopold then replies,
We're not as stuck in our ways as you think, Commander.
And Patrick asks,
So when do we get to put on the spandex and helmets?
Leopold then laughs and retorts,
First, you must step inside the transformation pods. If your bodies can handle it, you will become Power Rangers.
And Patrick replies,
And if our bodies can't?
Leopold then folds his arms and says,
You die.
And Patrick rebuttals,
So we're just going to be human sacrifices? Why would you want to risk losing a commander and valuable knight?
Antony then interjects,
Yeah, we didn't take our pledges for that.
Leopold rebuttals,
On the contrary, you did. The possibility of you three gaining these powers can drastically change our chances in the war. And besides, you swore your lives to protecting this kingdom. What makes this so different?
Commander Khan then nods his head and replies,
I see no issues with that statement.
as Eleanor steps into the lab and says,
I have arrived.
Leopold then replies,
Good. You are just in time to undergo the transformation process.
and Eleanor asks,
Transformation?
Leopold retorts,
Yes, you have been called upon to join these gentlemen as Power Rangers.
and Eleanor retorts.
So, they are real.
Following that, Leopold laughs again and replies,
If you live through it, you will see for yourself, madam.
Patrick then retorts,
I hope death isn't what happens for us.
and Commander Khan replies,
Patrick, hush. This isn't the time for remarks. As he said, we pledge our lives to this kingdom. Remember what you told Antony earlier.
Patrick afterward nods his head, and Leopold says,
Well, shall we?
and the four then step into the pods. Furthermore, Leopold, aided by the scientist, closes the pods, and Leopold commands,
Let's begin the procedure.
and the scientists pull the levers in the lab that begin to power up the machines. As the machines power up, the four begin to struggle as Power Ranger suits materialize around their bodies, and one of the scientists asks Sir Leopold, "Isn't there one more pod?" And he retorts,
Yes, but he's coming from the West region.
Moments later, after the suits have materialized around the knights, Leopold exclaims,
It's working!
and the process finishes. The four then power down, step out of the pods, and Commander Khan says,
Wow, I feel like a new man.
while Patrick adds,
Yeah, Commander, I feel different than before.
Leopold then retorts,
You four are now connected to the grid and possess the ability to go from knights into Power Rangers. All you have to do is insert these pendants I'm giving you inside those devices on your wrist and shout, Cavaliers, assemble.
Eleanor replies,
So, are these pendants only for changing into the suits?
and Leopold replies,
No, they can also be used to summon weapons, Zords, and to access different abilities.
Following that, Patrick retorts,
We're going to pilot giant robots. Talk about phenomenal.
Leopold says,
Yes, but you can only use them if necessary. They can topple entire buildings. You only escalate the situation if it calls for it.
The king then walks into the room and exclaims,
I'm elated. The process was a success. Knights and dames, our country needs your service to take down these rebels. Commander Khan, you will lead this team into battle, and you all will follow him, even if it means death. Our intel has located the traitor Grisella. She is now the general of the insurgent armies. We need you all to bring them down.
Commander Khan then does a salute in front of him and proclaims,
Yes, King Lionel, I will make sure to lead them with grace and precision. Knights and dames, let's go and make our countrymen proud.
and Patrick replies,
My king, we will deal with them swiftly.
and Eleanor interjects.
Yes, we will.
Meanwhile, a tall tan figure with a slender physique is walking through the forest accompanied by the royal guards. He says,
Hopefully, the king sees me as the best commander in the country and not that Khan.
and one of the guards replies, Commander Nicholas, this isn't that type of meeting. This will change your life forever. Nicholas then contemplates that sentence for a second and replies,
I don't understand how me being looked at as the best in my position isn't life-changing, but I'll go along with it all.
Simultaneously, Commander Khan along with the other 3 Cavaliers are riding on top of their horses while being accompanied by other knights and dames to the battlefield. Griselda then turns around and looks at them for a second. Commander Khan steps down from his horse and says,
Griselda, I despise what you've done. You've turned on your country and killed your own.
and Griselda replies,
I will rather be branded as a traitor than to serve that crooked king. I did everything I could for that country, all to serve his ego. He doesn't give a damn about anyone but himself.
Patrick then rebuttals,
I can't believe what I've heard about you. You were one of the first to introduce me to the Academy, Griselda. There's still a chance you can make things right. Stand down and join us.
Griselda retorts,
I will not participate in further oppressing people in that kingdom. And also, my army have been victorious. I think it's you all who need to step down.
Eleanor and Antony then draw their blades, and Eleanor says,
Patrick, she's made her choice clear. Please do not let your past with her blind your present. She has slaughtered several of her brethren. The time for reasoning is over.
Commander Khan then interjects,
Yes, my fellow patron, she's a lost cause. Get your pendant ready for action.
Patrick reluctantly nods his head and follows Khan's orders. Griselda's men then surround the 4 and their combined armies. Griselda, with an aggravated tone in her voice, grimaces at them and commands,
Let's send them to the king.
Khan then balls up his fists and exclaims,
Knights and dames, draw your weapons. We must protect Tucson.
The combined armies then charge in front of the fort or Griselda's men. Next, the 4 then insert different colored pendants inside their morpher and exclaim,
Cavaliers, assemble!
Afterward, the four goes into a sequence in which they are riding horses through a colorful armor that sequentially materializes into knight-like ranger suits around them. Commander Khan shouts,
Cavalier, Red Ranger.
Patrick shouts,
Cavalier, Blue Ranger.
Antony shouts,
Cavalier, Yellow Ranger.
Eleanor shouts,
Cavalier, Pink Ranger.
All four of them then proclaim,
Serving the Kingdom of Tucson with honor, bravery, and discipline. Power Rangers, Cavaliers.
The five then raise their swords and charge into battle with their brethren. Khan jumps in the air and slices down his opposition with quickness and precision, while Patrick ducks the attacks and stabs them through the abdomen. Simultaneously, Antony is struggling to hold his own against the many men charging towards him and says,
Damn it! They just keep coming in from every angle!
And Eleanor swoops in and erratically slashes them with her blade. Eleanor says,
Antony, you've got to keep up. The best strategy is going for the legs or abdomen.
And Antony replies,
Yes, Lady Eleanor.
As he joins in on the fray with her. Meanwhile, as Griselda's spectating the battle, she shouts,
Khan, you're free to wave the white flag. You will eventually tire out from the might of my army.
Commander Khan then retorts,
Never.
And adds,
It's time to see what the rest of these pendants can do.
After that, he pulls out a pendant from the pouch on his suit with a flame logo on it, opens up the compartment on his morpher, and then inserts it in there. A flame then surges through his body, and he exclaims,
Pyro Pendant, initiate!
And a flame moves from his body onto his blade, and he blazes a chunk of the army with the flames around his sword. The other three then follow him and do the same. Patrick screams,
Ice Pendant, initiate!
And ice crystallizes around his opponents as he waves his sword. Meanwhile, Antony shouts,
Sky Pendant, initiate!
And massive winds knock his foes through the forest. Lastly, Eleanor roars,
Earth Pendant, initiate!
And she then clobbers the knights with her blade after minerals crystallized around it. As the quartet takes down the army, Griselda cackles and says,
Immaculate, but you aren't the only ones who learn how to weaponize the grid.
Commander Khan then commands,
Remaining dames and knights who've been told to accompany us, please leave and go back to Tosin. Things are about to get dangerous on a scale you can't handle.
And the backing armies leave the battlefield. Griselda then arrogantly rebuttals,
You're making a huge mistake telling them to leave. You're going to need them.
After that, Antony says,
We will not risk any more men or women today.
And Eleanor interjects,
We sure won't. We are, however, going to give you a nice reunion with your army.
Patrick then steps in front of them and says,
Griselda, this is your last chance. Please reconsider your next move.
Griselda then walks over, puts her hand on his shoulder, and sarcastically mutters,
The thing about my moves is you may never see it coming.
Griselda then powers her blade, and water jumps from it and strikes Patrick. Commander Khan moves fast, and a sword battle begins between him and Griselda. Antony says,
That was cold-blooded. He was the only one that stuck up for you, and you just discarded him like trash.
And Griselda replies,
Anyone who sides with the kingdom is trash to me.
And pushes Khan back with her blade. Commander Khan then commands,
Antony, Lady Eleanor and I will handle her. You go and check on Patrick.
Antony nods his head and then runs away from the scene. Griselda then exclaims,
So, you're the new leader in the same regiment. I bet you were a nobody when I was in charge.
Eleanor replies,
Will last longer than your army did.
Angered by her comments, Griselda then bludgeons her with water from her blade. Commander Khan then proclaims,
I guarantee you won't be able to stand this.
And he shoots a huge flame from his sword. Griselda rebuttals,
I will put your fire out.
And shoots the same amount of water from her sword, and the attacks collide. Commander Khan says,
This kingdom will keep democracy alive. There's no such thing as a perfect world.
And Griselda replies,
All that the king has done is ignore the people at the bottom. They barely have a voice in the parliament. The king and his stooges are the only ones making decisions. Me and the Black Knight will create a utopia where everyone has the same standings.
Commander Khan then rebuttals,
There's no such thing as a perfect world. But in the one I live, I've seen peasants like my parents work their way up the ladder through hard work and perseverance.
Griselda then smirks and replies,
I doubt it. I bet your parents had to kiss royal asses, like everyone else, to get anywhere.
and she then pushes the attacks back with all her might, and the water covers Khan's fire, and then pummels him onto the ground. Furthermore, on the other side of the forest, a knight-like Green Ranger then helps Patrick up and asks,
Are you okay, man?
and Patrick answers,
Yes, Griselda, just got a good hit on me. She's a few feet away from here causing havoc.
The ranger then drops him and runs towards the action. Patrick yells,
That was rude, man. I thought we lived by the night code.
The Green Ranger then retorts,
If I don't hurry, we'll lose 3 of our best knights.
Moments later, Antony runs past the Green Ranger, helps Patrick up, and asks,
Who was that?
and Patrick answers.
I have no clue, but he could learn a thing about a manor or two.
Antony then retorts,
Yeah, he could, but are you okay?
and Patrick, as he gains his composure, says,
Yeah, but that attack did give a little whiplash, though.
Antony asks,
Are you feeling up to rejoining the battle?
and Patrick says.
You already know the answer to that.
Afterwards, Antony nods his head in agreement. Griselda says,
You did a number on my army, but it isn't like they can't be replaced. But the sad thing is that you all can't be.
and then she is struck by lightning from a distance. Griselda exclaims,
Who in the hell are you?
and the Green Ranger from earlier answers,
I hail from one of the most prestigious families in all of Tosan. I am Nicholas the Ninth, and I am the Cavalier Green Ranger.
Commander Khan then shakes his head and says,
Oh, brother, not this guy.
and Nicholas replies,
That's no way to thank the man who just saved your life.
Griselda then yells, You'll need your saved in a minute, and throws a wave from her blade. Nicholas then jumps over and roars,
Cavalry blade! Lightning! Bash!
and lands a blow on her as his blade crackles with lightning. Afterwards, Griselda stumbles on the ground and regains her balance. Griselda then draws her blade again and retorts,
I like this one.
and shouts.
Tsunami storm!
Next, a small tsunami erupts from her blade and bashes Nicholas into bushes nearby. Antony and Patrick then walk back into the area, and Patrick asks,
So, Commander Khan, what's the strategy?
Back in the lab at the castle, Leopold commands,
We must get the rest of the pendants hooked up to the transportation beam.
and one of the scientists replies, Yes, sir, we will get on it right now. Commander Khan replies,
Now you see the threat she is, and for the first time, I don't know, man. I'm stumped.
and his Morpher sounds off. Commander Khan then says,
Perfect timing, Leopold. She's about to wipe the floor with us.
and Leopold rebuttals.
Not if you hit her with the finisher from the cavalry bow.
Khan then recants,
How are we going to get a clear shot on her? It's not like one of us can be in 2 places at the same time.
and Leopold says,
Try using the duplicate pendant. It's in one of your pouches.
Patrick then interjects,
I've got it right here, Commander.
and the rest of the team walks up. Commander Khan, with conviction in his voice, then says,
Hey, Nicholas, I'm going to need you and the ladies to create a diversion with me, while Patrick holds her in place for an attack.
Nicholas reluctantly replies,
Okay,
and then says in his head,
I should be the one who's in charge. I actually managed to land a hit on her.
Commander Khan then commands,
Let's move, team!
and the women of the team follow him, with Nicholas trailing behind them. Griselda exclaims,
I see you came back to be put in your final resting place.
and Eleanor retorts, You'll be the one resting, and the 4 charge at her vigorously. Griselda then powers her blade up for another attack but is interrupted by a doppelganger of Patrick putting her in a full Nelson. The real Patrick then appears on the side of her and says,
I don't want to do this, but you must be stopped.
and runs towards the others. Commander Khan then inserts a pendant and summons a large bow in his hand. All 5 of the Rangers then insert their blades in the arrow, aim it at Griselda, and shout,
Cavalry bow, wailing smash!
Next, their blades power the arrow in the bow. Commander Khan shoots it, and the bow smashes itself against Griselda, and she is rattled by the impact. As Griselda's laying on the ground in pain, Nicholas turns her over and says,
I shall vanquish you from existence.
And Patrick stops him and rebuttals,
Killing her will only make her a martyr and spark the revolution more. She must be put on trial to show that the kingdom is fair and just.
Nicholas then replies,
Have you lost your mind? Letting her live will only give her another chance to kill more of our brothers and sisters.
And Commander Khan then interjects,
Stop it, Nicholas. He's right. We're taking her back to the kingdom.
And Eleanor retorts,
At this moment, we must show grace.
A few days later, back at the kingdom's castle outside the courtroom, Patrick finishes a conversation with the king, and then he walks in and delegates with the jury. The king then says, Judge,
we have come to the verdict.
The judge agrees and says, the jury and I have come to a verdict of guilty, but Griselda, you're fortunate. You will not be executed. You will serve the rest of your days in prison. Moments later, as the guards are walking through the hallway, Patrick says,
I hope you can find some redemption, Griselda.
And she replies,
I don't need your pity.
Back at the Black Knight's castle, he is tossing around Noel and Neville in an angry rage. Noel, struggling to gain his breath, pleads,
Sir, please, stop. I promise. I will make something that will put those Rangers out of commission.
And Neville interjects,
Yeah, sure. We swear without lies. We will make this situation right.
The Black Knight then commands,
We'll get to it.
And the two follow suit. The Black Knight then punches a wall and a memory is triggered. In the memory, the king and his cousin are fighting, and the king says,
Benedict, why do you want to change the ways of our kingdom? It has worked for centuries.
Benedict replies,
The kingdom must be reformed, and give the lower class more of a voice. They are people too.
The king then recants,
Benedict, they are doing just fine. Please, reconsider your stance.
And Benedict rebuttals,
No.
And swings his blade at the king, and the two begin fighting. The king pleads,
Benedict, stop!
But he presses forward, and the king stabs him. A teary-eyed man then runs over and cradles Benedict in his arms, and exclaims,
You're no king. You're a monster.
Immediately after his cry, the army behind him charges toward the king, and the king's guards jump in to protect him. Meanwhile, as Benedict is losing consciousness, he mutters,
Walter, get out of here. I don't want you to be harmed.
And Walter replies,
No, I won't leave you here.
Benedict rebuttals,
Go! This is a command.
And Walter runs away from the melee as Benedict dies. As the memory ends, the Black Knight puts his head down and proclaims in his head,
Benedict, I won't let your vision die. I will make sure the king dies the most grotesque of deaths.
Later that day at the king's castle, our 5 heroes walk out to a thunderous crowd cheering them on. Patrick says,
We're legends.
And Commander Khan replies,
We are.
Following that, Nicholas then interjects,
Without me, this wouldn't be possible. I did save your lives.
And Eleanor rebuttals,
Just don't go letting it get to your head.
Nicholas rolls his eyes, and Antony says,
How about we do a salute to cap things off?
The 5 agree and then draw their blades from their holsters, put them together, and exclaim,
We claim victory in the name of Tosin!